This conference will now be recorded.
Good to go. All right. Oh, found him. There he is. Okay. We'll get through all of the preliminary and get on with it. I call this special meeting of the Lovington City Commission to order. Shannon, roll call, please.
Mayor Roberts,
I'm here.
Commissioner Gandy,
Here.
Mayor Trujillo.
Here.
Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Bowles.
Here. All right. Join us in invocation, please. Father God, we just thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. We just thank you for the time that we have set aside to come and assemble to help make decisions for this community. Father, we just ask that you give your guidance and wisdom in making these decisions and just help us get on the path that is best for our community. Father God, we owe everything to you, and we just ask that you continue to bless our community and help us be a part of improving the lifestyle in our community. And of course, that allows us to be better Christians for you and to show that your will is the way that our community will prosper and grow. We appreciate the time that you've given us this evening. We ask that you continue to guide us through this time. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Join me in the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute
The flag of the state of New Mexico, the city of symbol of perfect friendship among the united cultures.
Maybe. I'm sorry. Oh, I know. Well, that's what I wasn't even thinking about. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion? Janet, roll call, please.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
Commissioner Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Mayor Roberts.
Yes. Brings us to our first action item.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2023-093, fiscal year 22-23, final quarter financial report.
We have a motion and a second for this resolution. Mr. Steiner, can you hear us? Okay. Okay, we can hear you. I'm sorry. Well, we're gonna have discussion before we vote. All right, well, we are going to
Approve and I'm fine with that.
well, she's ready. We will give you the floor then.
All right, thank you very much, commissioners. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to assist the city of Lovington again, as I did at this time last year. For those of you who do not know me or as a refresher, my name is Michael Steiner, and up until December of last year, I was special director with DFA Local Government Division for 10 years. My job was to travel the state and assist local governments like yourself that were having training issues or needed help with quarterly reports, year-end stuff. And now that I've retired, I'm still doing that, but I'm doing it in a private capacity. I heard some conversation right before the meeting started. Normally, we would do the quarterly report and the budget in the same evening, but because of the issues we were having in getting them done, it just worked out that the quarterly was ready for tonight. And David and I just finished the budget today. I sent it to Sharon for the package tomorrow for Monday night's meeting. So I am sorry that we weren't able to get both of them on at the same time, but you're getting them done. The quarterly report is, as all of you should know from last year, is a summary of your financial operations, but molded into DFA's format. So I'm going to just kind of go over the various columns so that you understand what they mean. My preference is that these be presented to you every quarter, because as the governing body and the Board of Finance, even though I submit these under my name, you're the one legally responsible for them. So I think it's important that you know what it is that is being filed on your behalf. Actually, now that I see what's on the screen, this is not the quarterly report.
That's the budget recap for the entire fiscal year. But we do have another slide, I think, with the fourth quarter. Is there another
I
one?
thought.
Yeah, it'll say recap, report recap, give the year, and on the far right hand side, it'll say FY23 Q4.
Michael, it's not on the screen, but all the commissioners do have that in their packet.
Okay, that's fine, as long as you at least.
Beside this one. The formats are similar, so I didn't
Grab it.
notice it until I did.
That one's not even good.
Give us 1 second.
Yeah, we're gonna have to
Just so we're on
find
the
it.
same page. Okay, it's the,
This is this one. This is
This-
quarterly report.
make sure they all have the right one.
Oh, I have a report recap. I think this is it. And it local budget.
No, it's gonna look like this. Can you pass that back? Now, this might be printed out in a different format.
This is fiscal year back.
So if you look to the right of it, it says Q4.
I didn't know this one.
Okay, well, maybe,
Yeah, what you were looking at right now looks like it was one of the drafts.
this is one they had in the report. I mean, original.
I have this from my copy, but it's the back.
I think the same.
That's last page.
I have the color one.
I have the blue one, yes.
Yeah, that's the one we're gonna look at Monday, because that's the whole.
No, it says Q4.
It says Q4.
Original
Right, this is, yeah, this is the one that's in the packet.
Okay.
I think this is the same one.
Revised numbers.
This is the same one as you just passed around.
Okay, maybe mine was in color.
The one that's blue. If, you didn't get that? Okay. It was in,
Use
it was
mine.
originally in,
Well, the thing is, the original one I said was no good, so I left it home.
that's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
It's been no good, but it's a good
Feel
one.
free to use mine.
Yeah, you do. Okay, does everybody have a copy? If not, we can, okay. All right. I think we've located it. So if it's not the right one, we'll, as you're talking, we'll figure it out. But I think we've got it.
One way to check is if you look at the very last number on the lower right-hand corner for the totals, it should say 17,873,672.56.
Okay.
That, if you have a report with that number in the bottom right-hand corner on the second page, then you have the correct one.
That would be the two, okay.
No? Okay.
Michael, you're talking about the recap for Q4, the two pager?
Yes.
Okay, so that's gonna be 2 pages, and it's gonna be signed by Michael, and the second page shows 17,873.
Yeah, that's the one I originally.
Okay,
Okay, the one that's got,
Okay.
yeah, he's signed on it. Okay. All right.
If you, if you have the one that has my signature on it, then you have the final one.
okay.
Send that back to.
Okay, so we're all on the same tab then?
No.
Thanks so much.
Okay, well, you don't have a copy.
No,
either.
I'm good.
Oh, y'all got one?
Yeah, I've got one each here.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Use mine.
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
As I had mentioned, this is a recap of your city's financial statements, just repackaged in the format that DFA requires it. So first thing I want to mention is that the funds descriptions that you see on the left side will not directly correspond to your fund numbers in all cases. For example, in the one that it says 299 other special revenue, that actually comprises 7 of your city funds all along the one. So if you're trying to tie this back to a city report, it won't work in all cases, but in total, the numbers do match. Reading across, just so that you have a reference to what this form is telling you, the column that says cash is the cash that you started with July 1st of 2022. The investment column is your actual investments as of June 30th, 2023. For this purposes, investments are pretty much any cash balance that is not part of your pooled cash system. So it will be your overnight repo account. It will be all of your NMFA accounts. It will be some of the small checking accounts that you have in some of your agency accounts. So it is the definition that I use for it is any cash that is not part of your main pool cash operating account for operating purposes. Revenues are self-explanatory. Transfers are money that moves between funds. The three most common reasons for that is debt service payments. One fund has to transfer its money over to the 404 account in order to make the debt payments. It can be also transfers for grant matches. Sorry, Greg, I got a fly bothering me. It can be transfers for grant matches, or in most cases, it is a subsidy to keep another fund operational. For example, your cemetery fund by definition will never generate enough money to cover its costs. So it always is going to have a subsidy from general fund. So those go into that column. Expenditures will be self-explanatory. Adjustments, this column tends to raise concern with some people, especially like in your case where it shows a negative $7.9 million. All adjustments are non-cash changes that impact cash. The best example of that is say your utility bill. As you do your utility billing, that revenue gets reported in the revenues column, but until the customer comes in and pays it, it doesn't impact cash. So we have to make a adjustment to allow for those changes. So everything that is in that column is changes between your assets at June 30th of 22 and your assets and liabilities as of June 30th, 2023. It's an accounting issue that doesn't really impact you, but it does cause a lot of concern with some people who are not familiar with it. It does not actually impact your cash. We're not saying that $7.9 million is not there, or it's not in the right place. It's simply an accounting adjustment to reflect the revenues and expenses down to cash. You've probably heard the term when the auditors present the audit: full accrual accounting, modified accounting, cash accounting. This column gets you off of everything in unrestricted cash. The column that says balance is your actual cash balances. I don't have access to your bank reconciliations, but they tie out to the information that the Bureau provided to me. Everything does tie out. It matches your pool cash report. It matches your investments. And then the next column over is reserve. The only fund that has that is the municipality's general fund. You are required to keep a 1/12 reserve on hand in the event of a financial hardship or a clawback from tax and rev or whatever. Couple of things I wanted to point out. You started the year with $4.78 million in operating cash. You finished the year at 7.14 million, so you had an increase of 2.3 million. That can be attributed to enough factors, but your cash is still healthy. Your investments last year were 11,093,000. You finished this year at 11,000,004, an increase of 357. That can be changes in your NMFA loans. That can be your sweep accounts. So it is your cash situation is very good. It's comparable and better than what it was last year. And again, it does tie to your records. Does anyone have any questions of particular? Because without the detail, going through these individual accounts would not be a whole lot. So is there just anything that stands out that you have a question on?
I would just note for the commission that This will not include the 5.7 million from the county. That came in after the past fiscal year. Came in June.
This
Sorry,
did.
July.
I was gonna say, yeah. Well, it didn't. It actually showed up before July, but you may not have invested it.
Okay. Understood.
Okay, Michael, one question. The last two figures that you gave, the last two line items you gave, where were you pulling those from? Or where were those from?
I'm sorry, those numbers are not actually stated on the report.
Okay,
If you look at the total for the column that says, balance, it says 18,591,000.
Yep.
That amount is $7,140,000 that is in your pooled cash account, and 11,450,000 that is in your investments. All I was doing was indicating how that number has improved over where you started the year from.
Michael,
It's also important to note that that 18,591,000 is going to be, you will see that number Monday broken into those two components of cash and investments, because those are the balances that were carried over to the beginning cash balance for next year's budget, and you will see those again Monday night.
Michael, as far as the start of the fiscal year 2022, what was our cash balance?
The cash balance that was in your pool cash account was $4,784,298.
But what was the start of fiscal year 2022? How much was in there?
that was it.
Or is that is it?
I don't have the start of 22, I have the start of 23, which was the 4,000,007. So for the year that you just completed, you started the year with 4.7 million and you finished with 7.1.
Right.
And when you add the investments to that, that's where you come up with the 18,591,000 it's total.
Yeah, the 7.1 is not reflected. There isn't a.
No, on this form,
On this one,
by the time it gets to the cash column, all your cash is lumped. If you were to see the worksheet that generates this, you would see the 7.1 million, and then you would see the 11.4. But by the time it hits the balance column, it's all run together. If you would like, I can email for Monday night a copy of the worksheet where you would see those differentials, if that's important to you.
That would be nice.
Okay, let me make a note to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll show you all the background of how these numbers were all calculated. So when I get it done here, I will email that to Shannon to have that distributed Monday night also.
The last question that I have, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll remember mine.
No, go right ahead. I was just gonna ask if there were any other questions.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fierro, at our last commission meeting, had us do a transfer, and my question is, starting the beginning of this year, 2024, we eliminated all the deficits that had been carried over I guess my real question is, we are starting on a clean slate in the beginning of 2024. Is that correct?
That is correct. The information that Mr. Bureau provided to me was included all of those transfers that you approved at Monday night's meeting. So by the time he sent it to me, that had already been incorporated. So yes, you are not starting the year with any deficits. DFA does not permit deficit cash balances at June 30th. So Ed just beat me to the punch on correcting that issue.
Okay, just making sure that we kind of understood where we were at.
Yes, because I was concerned that because normally this process has three things. It has the final budget adjustments, it has a quarter report, which you approve, and then those cash balances go into the budget. So it's a three-step process. Mr. Bureau just happened to do one. I got the quarter report, and then Monday we will pick up those cash balances along with the budget for next year. So he already addressed that issue, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna have one more question, and I'm sorry. On the senior citizens, okay, on the senior citizens line, I know that of that transfer that we made, which was at 1.3 million, a lot of that was in the senior citizens, well, nearly is more than half, went into the senior citizens fund, or their line item anyway.
Yes.
There was discussion that we had carried over from the previous year. We had to, when you did our final budget adjustment last year, they entered the year, you had to extract from their budget 200 and something thousand. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly, which put them in a deficit for the year as far as the budget. There was no way that they could stay within their budgetary lines, which is the reason that we ended up having to do this large transfer at the end of the year. Is there a breakdown of that particular fund? I know there is, but do you have a breakdown of that particular fund activity over the full year?
I have to have all of the information that was sent to me right here. Let me take a look. Because what is reported in one line item on this report actually encompasses three of your internal funds, but I'm assuming that most of it is going to be in the main senior account. So let me pull that up here.
Michael, it's David.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead and finish what you're saying, then I'll.
Okay.
All right.
Of the 757,000 that shows in expenditures, the largest items for those was 174,000 for building and structure. There $60,000 for the insurance. $82,000 for nutrition, food supplies for the senior center, and then there's a $236,000 for payroll. But those are the largest items that make up that 757,000. One of the things, and without bringing up history, one of the things that happened last year that I don't know whether it was conveyed to you or not is, in order to get your budget to balance and get it through DFA's review process, we had to eliminate a whole lot of expenses because the budget did not have enough revenue in some funds to absorb even its payroll costs. So by the time we got done applying the payroll into the budgeting process, you know, you may, for example, you may have had say $100,000 in cash and $100,000 in revenue for a total available of 200,000. And your payroll budget alone may have been 250,000. So since those employees are there, they have to be paid. So in order to make the thing work, we had to wholesale out a lot of expenses. And that I don't know whether that was relayed to you or not, but it probably contributed to a number of issues you came up with during the year, because I did notice while doing this quarterly report that some of the items that I do remember from last year were not addressed. I kind of attribute that to the turnover you've had. I think you've had, what, 3 finance directors since this time last year. And it's not unusual for those things, because the person who had the knowledge left, the next person didn't even know it was an issue. So that may or may not have attributed to some of the issues you had during the year.
That makes sense.
Yeah, my biggest question on that item was senior citizen. So when did, I remember recalling zeroing it out or at one point, where did that come into factor? Because they said we have to zero out because DFA won't accept a negative balance. So at what time did we zero it out? Because I'm still trying to figure out the 176. At one time, I thought we zeroed out that number because coming into this fiscal year we just finished, because DFA wouldn't accept a negative balance. And was that one of the messages that wasn't relayed to us, or because of the 176? Go ahead.
Are you referring to the 176,000 that's appearing under the adjustment column?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that number only relates to the changes in assets and liabilities between last year at June 30th and of 22 and June 30th of this year. That is just a change in non-cash items. Where I think what you're talking about on the deficit is the senior program runs in arrear. You operate and then you submit billing to whoever your agency down there is. Up here is the area agency on aging. I don't know who yours may be. It could be the same agency. You send them a bill for the operations for the last 3 months, and then they send you a reimbursement. Yes, if your bank account shows a negative balance because you've paid those expenses out waiting for that reimbursement, DFA will not allow you to carry that negative balance over to the next year. So what it will do, or what you need to do, is either do a hard transfer of cash from, usually it's general fund to the senior fund, to make it up for that deficit. And then when that money comes in, you can repay general fund, or you can just leave it in there and use it as operating cash. But yes, what we were told is correct. Usually you see it in project accounts. You're building something, you pay the contractor, you build DOT or long-term aging or DFA, somebody, you could bill them for the reimbursement under the legislative appropriation or wherever you got it from. Until that money arrives, you are in a deficit, and DFA will not allow that to be carried over. So you would either do a temporary transfer or you do a hard dollar transfer. It's kind of your choice. But Mr. Fierro took care of those prior to sending me the financial statements. For the senior center, you'll notice under the balance column, you're finishing the year with about 24,000. You're finishing, I shouldn't say about, finishing the year with $24,514.61 in cash. So whatever Mr. Fierro did, he got rid of the deficits, and you're ending with about what you started with for the year. So your revenue, your transfers, your expenses net to almost zero, which it should. Did I help that, or did I make it worse?
I just want to make sure we don't end up in the same same situation this year, and at the end of the year, we have to make a big adjustment like that again. So I guess something we'll just keep an eye on doing. Fiscal.
If your adjustments are monitored during the year, what I recommend and what I teach in class is, when you're doing the quarterly reports during the year, if you see something that you know is going to become an issue, that's a good time to make a change. So if using the senior center as an example, we all know what has happened with food costs. So you signed a contract with your agency, who said, we will provide you X funding for X number of meals to be served, homebound, congregate, whatever. Well, then the price of eggs goes to $5 a dozen, price of meat goes to $20 a pound. And unless you cut back in other areas, or you can get a contract amendment, you know that you're going to be spending more money than you're going to get reimbursed. So that would be an appropriate time to say, you know what, our budget was based on, $1 a dozen eggs. We're now paying $5 a dozen. We don't see that changing. So we need to make a budget adjustment, because we know that by year end, we're going to be short. So I recommend monitoring it and changing it during the year. A lot of people don't. It's a choice driven by preference and whatever your direction to management and finance is.
Yeah, and I like quarter adjustments. That way we all know where we're at, why we're having to make an adjustment. So it's always good to know at least quarterly basis.
Right.
Yeah, we have used to do it years back. Go ahead.
Because one of the things I get asked frequently by students in class is, well, how often should I do them? Well, theoretically, you could do budget adjustments every time the governing body meets. How long you'll have at your job when they get tired of seeing them is a different thing. I know places that do them once a year. In some places, one in particular I could think of has been burned by that, because by the time they get around in July, making all of their budget adjustments, they don't have enough money in general fund or the water fund or whatever it is to cover that shortage. Because we just now discovered it. We didn't do anything about it during the year. What I recommend to people is to do a budget adjustment whenever you know that you have a structural change to the budget. And then it can either be you got a grant for a loan that you weren't planning on, so you put that in. You did not get a a loan or a grant that you were expecting to get, so you take that out. The example I gave where our budget was based, we saw that a few years ago with fuel. When gas went from $2 a gallon to almost $5 around places, you know, the sheriff's office and departments, police departments that were heavily reliant on fuel, their budgets were just decimated. Well, if you know that that is going to happen, the best thing to do is when you do a quarterly report, when you see that your budget is 50,000 and you've already spent 90% of it 3 months into the year, now's a good time to make that change, because it probably is not going to get any better during the year. And so, yes, I advocate that when you do the quarterly report, that's a good time, because you're looking at every single line item, you're looking at every revenue line, you're looking at every expense line, and that's a good time to say, you know what, this isn't going to be enough, or maybe we've had revenue fall off. Down in your part of the country, you're very dependent on oil. We all know that it's a roller coaster. And if we're going through another one of those seasonal fall offs that periodically happens, well, then reduce your revenues and your expenses in line with what it is, rather than to keep going. Because I'm sure that all of you have probably heard it at one time or another, people say, well, it's in my budget. It's been approved. Well, that budget is based on so much revenue coming in. And if that revenue doesn't come in, you can't match those expenses. I try to tell people, think of your household budget. Your household budget is set up based on your income. Well, many people during COVID were laid off. They had reduced hours. Well, can you continue spending at the rate you were planning when your income is now half of what it was last week? The answer is no. Government can't do it either. And so I try to encourage regular monitoring and changing those things, because yes, I don't enjoy standing before a governing body in July and putting out that there are hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in budget adjustments when we could have adjusted it during the year.
Totally agree, Michael.
Right, I think some of your issue, at least from what I saw in doing the quarterly report, was that some of the issues from last year didn't get fixed, and I attribute that to the turnover that unfortunately you've had, as we've all been experiencing it. In order to not do that, Dave, Melissa, and I spent a little over 2 hours on the phone today going through all of the items for next year's budget that I wasn't comfortable addressing myself. David, what do you want to do with this? We don't have enough money here. Do you want to look at expenses? Do you want to transfer from general fund, so that we don't go through that process like we did last year?
Mr. Mayor, I think we should probably wrap this up, because we got 3 more hours in Bisbee. I think the numbers are matching.
I don't think we're gonna make any.
We're not gonna discover oil or newfound mathematical equations.
Okay, we checking your bedroom.
Okay, I'm good with that. Any further questions?
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
All right. Shannon, roll call.
Commissioner Trujillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mayor Roberts.
Yes.
All right, get excited. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to go into closed session as soon as we together here. Pursuant to section 10-1-10-15-1 NSA 1978, subsection 2H, regarding limited personnel matters, city manager candidate interviews.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Shannon?
Commissioner White? Yes. Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Trujillo?
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy?
Yes.
Mayor Roberts?
Yes. I think we were just so mesmerized that we had figures in time.
Once they match everything.